Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Legal Aid Queensland webinar. I'd like to start by acknowledging and offering our respect to the First Nations, custodians of the lands where our office stand and where we work to help disadvantaged Queenslanders uphold their legal rights in our justice system. We pay respect to their elders, law, customs and creation spirits. We recognise that these lands have always been places of ceremony, teaching, research and learning, and we acknowledge the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples play in our community and improving our legal system. So welcome to this afternoon's webinar. The topic today is child protection, helping clients access legal help. I'm sorry that I'm off camera. My name is Catherine Gorda. I'm the Community Legal Education and Engagement Coordinator here. I'm your facilitator today, and I'll shortly introduce you to our speakers. So our speakers, just to my far left, Megan in black. Megan Hunt is a senior lawyer in our children and young people team in the child protection team as part of Legal Aid Queensland. And I'm also joined by Courtney Moss, a lawyer with our children and young people child protection team as well at Legal Aid. Thank you for being available for the presentation today. So a bit of housekeeping before we start the webinar content. So the webinar is being recorded. You'll be able to access a copy of that through our YouTube channel once we've uploaded it. And if you have any issues in terms of sound or technical issues today, you will need to go to the GoToWebinar customer support to access help with that. So the format of today's webinar is about 40 minutes of presentation time from Courtney and Megan and about 20 minutes, up to 20 minutes of Q&A time. So you might notice on your screen there is a question box where you can type questions. So if you have any questions that you think of during the presentation that you'd like to ask, please pop them in that question box, send them to me, and we'll have a look at those at the end of the presentation time. We've also added a copy of the PowerPoint slides to the handout section of the webinar, so you can download a copy of those slides as well. We're going to kick off with our first poll, just to learn a little bit about who's joining us today. So I'll just launch this poll for you. So the first poll is, what region do you work in? So I'll just launch that, and the options are South East Queensland, Far North Queensland, Regional Queensland, or outside of Queensland. So if you could pop an answer, select an answer from one of those options, and I'll give you about 10 seconds to pop that in. Thanks everyone, a few more seconds. Okay, I'll close that one off now and share the results. So we have 63% of people are joining us from South East Queensland, and from Far North Queensland about 24% and about 30% from regional, so that's great. And I think we've got another poll straight after that one. So hang on, I'll just bring that one up. So the next question is, what is your role? And I'll just launch that one for you. So the options are support or community worker, financial counsellor, health or education worker, social worker, lawyer or other. So I'll give you another few seconds to pop your answer in there. Couple more. And I'll close that off and share with everybody. So it looks like we have mostly lawyers joining us today, about 38% and almost 30% social workers as well, and a few of the other categories as well, including support workers. So that's great. Thank you for making time to join us today. I'll just close that one now. And I think we have one more poll. Yes, we do. I'll just launch that one for you. So this is to help us get an idea of how many of your clients are currently engaged with child safety or have children under child protection orders. So the options are none, a few clients, half of my clients, most clients, or all of my clients. So just a bit more time to answer that one. Couple more seconds. Okay, I'll close that off and share. And so it looks like most people have a few clients engaged with child safety, although 15% all of my clients Okay, so that's interesting. Thanks everyone for sharing that. That just helps us frame our session to your needs. I'll just hide that. We'll go on with the PowerPoint slides. So a brief overview of what you'll learn today. So it's an overview of Legal Aid Queensland's child protection services, and we do have a few different services. They are the Child Protection Duty Lawyer Service, the Child Protection Outreach Legal Service, the Child Protection Legal Advice Service, and our Early Legal Service as well. We'll also be looking at grants of aid for child protection matters, the types of lawyers in child protection proceedings, and our referral processes. So I'll hand over to Courtney to start the presentation. Thanks, Courtney.
So at Legal Aid, we have a child protection duty lawyer service, and it's a free service where we are able to help clients appearing in court for a child protection matter in the court of their court appearance only. So typically what happens is the parent arrives at court, and we can assist if the parent fills out a legal aid duty lawyer form, and then there's no conflict of interest identified. So we assist by discussing the legal situation and what their options are that are available for them. We give free legal information and advice, and provide referrals in that session. We explain what will happen in court. We can help them with negotiations with either the DCPL or the Office of the Child and Family Official Solicitor, OCFOS. We can help them with filling out any court forms or any documents. We talk to them about when and how they can become eligible for legal aid and help them to fill out a legal aid application. And as I said earlier, we can refer them to other organisations that may be able to help. So we offer a child protection duty lawyer service in a number of locations that are listed on the screen. I won't go through all of them. Thanks, Catherine. So just to give you all an example of what kind of things we can do as a duty lawyer, this is a really good example. The mother attended at court and she had a very young 9-day-old baby, and OCFOS was seeking a 28 order for child safety to conduct an investigation and assessment, and that's called a court assessment order application. And during that time, child safety wanted the baby to be in their care. So the client agreed for the order to be made, as she knew that she wasn't in a position to care for the baby at the time, but she was only having contact with the baby for an hour twice a week, and she really wanted to continue breastfeeding. So this duty lawyer was able to negotiate orders for the mother to have daily contact with her baby so that she could continue to breastfeed and promote that really important bond with mum.
So one of the other services that we have here at Legal Aid is an outreach legal service. This has formed as a result of seeing the lack in services that are provided in some of the regional areas and remote areas in Queensland. The target areas are those that are listed on the screen ahead of us. Some of those areas also have duty lawyer services, so that's the Beenleigh, Holland Park, Mackay, Richlands, Gladstone, Kingaroy, Rockhampton, Cleveland and Gympie. The way in which to make the referral for this is we have a Child Protection Outreach Legal Service referral form. It's an interactive form that can be filled in. Once it's completed, then it automatically is sent back to our childprotection.outreach@Legal Aid Queensland email address. Before we're able to speak with someone, we still have to undertake conflict checks. In the event that for some reason there is a conflict, we will make a referral to a preferred supplier for some advice, initial advice anyway, and they can take it from there. Another service that we provide is the legal advice service. So this is just a telephone clinic that is operated 3 days a week on Monday, Wednesday and Friday between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. It's telephone. There are some certain circumstances where we may see a client in person, and that could be a client who needs an interpreter and English is their second language. We are required to conflict check before we can have any of these legal advice sessions. In circumstances where there's a conflict similar to the outreach service, we will make a referral. A letter gets sent to the client so they can take it to a preferred supplier in order to be able to get some advice. The purpose of this clinic is to be able to provide advice to both parents, non-parties, so Section 113 participants in the applications, children who are involved in the proceedings, or anyone else who might become involved with the child protection system.
So at Legal Aid, we also have the Child Protection Early Legal Service. It is a service where we provide legal advice and assistance to parents who are at risk of becoming involved in the child protection system. So to give a bit of an example of what kind of matters these might be, it might be the case that a parent has their children at home, but child safety are involved by way of an IPA or maybe a safety plan. So we can provide ongoing advocacy and support while the kids are still at home. There are specifics though on parents being referred into this service. So the parent has to be linked in with a support service. So it's typically what we call a wraparound service. So it's a service that might assist the client with housing, health, counselling, domestic and family violence supports, drug and alcohol services, mental health services, parenting supports and services or programs, or a financial support service. So the whole point of that service is for us to try and avoid child safety removing the children or filing any application in the court. So you don't need a legal aid application for that particular service. So I guess the criteria is that they're involved with a wraparound service, the kids are still in the home, and there's no conflict of interest identified. So we just have to make sure that it's all conflict checked through our legal aid system, and then we can start our advocacy and support. So we can attend meetings with child safety. Again, we can provide advice and referrals for parents, and do all that we can to assist in them being able to keep their children in their care. Sorry, the other thing that I didn't mention is that that service is specific to South East Queensland. So there's a rule that we can only assist a parent that is within an hour and a half of Brisbane. Always refer your client in that you're supporting if you think that they would be a good fit, and we'll see what we can do to assist if they're outside of that hour and a half time frame. But yeah, typically that's what it is. So yeah, the client has to be a parent. There has to be no proceedings before the court. There has to be a wraparound service and a conflict check identified that is all fine. Sorry, no conflict identified is what I should have said. This case example is one of my clients that I had a few months ago. She was 15 and she was referred into our service when she was 6 months pregnant, and child safety indicated that they were intending on taking the baby upon birth. The concerns for this particular family were really that mum was 15, dad was 18. Dad was subject to a long-term order with child safety and had just aged out. He was criminally offending. They didn't have stable housing. They had a minimal support network. And there was issues with the father perpetrating domestic violence. So I went out to the service and met with this young mum. So when I say the service, sorry, the service that referred her into us, I went out and met with her and provided her advice and assisted her with negotiating things with child safety, determining any gaps in the support that she needed, and really advocated for her at the meetings with child safety, and particularly about what's going to happen at the hospital and post-discharge. We ended up being able to develop a really robust safety plan. My client was able to keep her baby, and she ended up moving back to her parents' home in Western Queensland, and child safety just asked the court for a directive order in relation to the father's contact, which for those non-lawyers who are listening is an order that the father is just to have supervised time, and that would mean that child safety just come and check on the baby in mum's care and would facilitate time, typically at a child safety office with the father. So a really good outcome for that young mum and baby, and she's doing so well. The second case example was a referral for a First Nations client, and she had a 5-month-old baby at the time. She was previously a child in care, and she had the public guardian appointed for legal and non-legal matters. She had a significant intellectual impairment, and she was the victim of horrendous violence, and she did also have a couple of different mental health diagnoses. We were able to assist her by providing legal advice and assistance to both her and to the public guardian, so we would have our meetings together. The client and the public guardian and I, we would communicate with the various support services that she had through her NDIS, and we would advocate for the client again at the various meetings we had with child safety, and just making sure that she had all of the appropriate support services in place to ensure that we could reduce the risk within the home. And for that particular matter was visibility of the child. The outcome was really good in that the baby wasn't removed from child safety, by child safety, and he remained in the care of the mother. Child safety opened an intervention with parental agreement. Again, for those non-lawyers, that is what I would call an at-home type of intervention. It's where child safety work with parents on addressing the concerns, and those types of interventions are typically for 6 to 12 months, and they get the parents to work with various services to address the child protection issues. And the OPD provided very positive feedback to us about our early legal service and the support of this client, and particularly building that rapport and engagement with her.
So Legal Aid provides different funding throughout the way for child protection proceedings. So I spoke before about our advice clinics. There is no funding required for those, just like the ELS service, and they're available to anyone. However, anyone who has an application before the court, whether or not it's for a court assessment order or a child protection order, there is funding available for each of those stages. The grants are subject to means testing, so that's providing all of their financial information to the grants department, but they're not merit funded for some of the stages. So an example of that is when a party has been served with a child protection order application, and they want to get some initial assistance and representation in the court proceedings. So there is actually no merit testing, and everyone, as long as they meet that means testing, is able to get legal aid funding for those matters. Some of the other things that are funded though is there's what we call a post-order grant of aid. So that's once the court proceedings are finalised and a further family group meeting or case plan meeting is going to be arranged, and particularly in circumstances where a client is finding that their contact hasn't progressed or there's just been some issues with child safety, then we are able to get some funding and represent parents at those meetings as well. It could also be for a child. If a child wanted to attend a family group meeting, we're able to represent them in those meetings too. We also have funding for QCAT matters. So if a parent has filed to review a decision that has been made by child safety, there is funding available to represent them in those proceedings. QCAT's a little bit different because it is actually going to be merit tested, similar to an interim hearing or a final hearing in a matter. There will be merit testing for those matters. So the parties in child protection proceedings, these are the main parties. So we've got the Department of Children, Youth and Multicultural Affairs, or Child Safety. So we have the Child Safety Officer as well as the Senior Team Leader. Then we've got the Office of the Child and Family Official Solicitor. So we generally see them when it's a court assessment order. So in those very early stages where they're seeking those investigation and assessment applications before the court. Once it's progressed past that stage, that's when we start to see the Director of Child Protection litigation. And we'll have the applicant lawyer, and they are the lawyer that is responsible for filing the matter in the proceedings and bringing that application to the court, whilst the file lawyer is the lawyer who is responsible for the day-to-day contact and those court appearances. We also have the separate representative, the direct representative, child advocate, and something I haven't put on the screen there is what's called a Section 113 participant. For a 113 participant can be any person, generally speaking, might be a family member, a kinship carer, and they've got information that needs to go before the court. And that's a way they can participate in the proceedings. The way they participate could be limited. So they may not get all of the documents and they might only be able to go for certain things, but it depends on the type of information that they have and what the court orders. But that's definitely someone who should get some advice if they want to consider becoming a party in the proceedings. So the separate representative is an independent lawyer who acts on behalf of the child's best interests, regardless of what instructions are made from the child. The court must consider ordering a separate representative if one of the parties is opposed to the application that's before the court. The child's views and wishes need to be, as far as possible, put before the court, but the separate representative's role is to gather as much information about the case and present it to the court. Their role ends when the application is either decided or withdrawn, or if there's been an appeal in relation to the application, when that appeal is decided or withdrawn as well.
So in regards to direct representatives, Section 108 of the Child Protection Act says that a child may appear in person and be represented by a lawyer engaged as the child's direct representative to act on the child's instructions. So a child is a party to the proceedings and they can be directly represented by a lawyer, but only if they have the capacity to instruct a lawyer. So our first job when receiving these types of files is to conduct what we call a capacity assessment. So we need to be satisfied that the child has a sufficient understanding to enable them to understand fully what is proposed, and they have to make their own decisions. So we take their instructions from them directly. It's not what we think is best for them, it's what we provide them with advice and options, and they tell us what they want to do in the proceedings. I know that there's often some confusion about the difference between a direct representative and the separate representative in proceedings. So the direct representative acts on instructions, whereas the separate representative goes and speaks with the child, might commission what we call a social assessment report by a social worker or psychologist. And that report usually tells the court what is in the best interests of the child from their perspective, it's not necessarily what the child wants. They will certainly take into account their views and wishes, but that's that distinct difference between the direct rep and a sec rep. We also then have child advocates, and they're employed by the Office of the Public Guardian. They work with children and young people. They also provide information and advice. They can assist the child to make an application for legal aid funding. We get quite a few applications for aid from the Office of the Public Guardian. So child advocates for the children ensure that the child's views and wishes are expressed to the court. They can also support the child's participation in any meetings with child safety, but particularly family group meetings, court-ordered conferences. They can assist with meeting with the magistrate or writing a letter to the magistrate if that's what the child wants.
This is all our referral information through to the child protection team. So if any referral is to be made, it's best to complete one of the referral forms that we have, but if at a minimum you don't have one of those forms, what you need to give us is the client's full names, date of birth and contact details, the full names, dates and birth of the children and the family, so that child safety is involved with, the parents of each of the children, a brief description of the child protection problem, and also, unless we know that the client has consented to the referral being made, we will come back and ask that question. It's just that we're not cold calling clients, it's more just making sure that they know and they're aware that we are going to be contacting them at some stage.
I'm just going to flag at this point that we can include all of this referral information, the phone number, the email addresses in the email we send after the webinar with the recording. So yeah, we'll make sure you will get a copy of those referral details. So we've whipped through our content today. We are going to pause for questions briefly. So if you do have any questions for Courtney or Megan, please pop them in the question box on your screen. I'll just run through this referral information first, and we do actually have a couple of questions that some of our people who registered sent through earlier, so we'll get to those next. But please feel free, if you've got a question, pop in the question box and we'll take a look at it. So on screen now, these are some of the main phone lines for Legal Aid Queensland. The first one there, our 1300 65 1188, that's our main call centre phone line. That's like for general public calling to get legal information, so you can definitely call that number. We also have an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander information line. That is a priority phone line for First Nations clients. So anyone who calls that number is put at the top of our call queue and will be answered as a priority. The third number we've got there is for people who have submitted an application for aid, that 1300 383 900 number. So that's the one to call to check on the status of an application. So while we wait for some questions to come through, I'll turn to the questions we received before the webinar. So the first question was, how do you support clients from a non-English speaking background to lodge a complaint?
So I guess it depends on the circumstances where that client has come to seek some advice. So if we are at Duty Lawyer, we're able to get an interpreter on the telephone so that we're able to speak with the client there and then to get them through that information. That can also assist us to complete a legal aid application so that representation moving forward can be provided. Alternatively, if it's a referral for some telephone advice or a request for face-to-face advice, we can always make sure that we have the interpreter available as well. And sometimes we just have to schedule it around interpreters' availability. But there's ways that we will assist, and if for some reason that the language for the interpreter isn't quite right, we will keep going until we get the correct language.
Thank you very much, Megan. The next question that was submitted in advance was, are domestic and family violence lawyers informed? What framework do they use?
So we have done the David Mandel training, and we also operate under the domestic and family violence best practice principles.
Okay,
Hopefully that helps.
This is the question. We've actually had a few questions come through, so I'll just look at these. So one person is asking, so those outside the EQ catchment can access the early legal service if they attend a hospital within the catchment?
Outside the EQ catchment. Oh,
Southeast
Sorry, there was a typo there. So those outside the Southeast Queensland catchment can access the ELS if they attend a hospital within the catchment? Is that something we know about that referral?
No,
process?
not necessarily. The client would have to be linked in with one of the support services to be referred into our ELS program. So it's not necessarily attending a hospital. It's about being actively engaged with a support service and then the support service would refer the client in. Hopefully that assists.
Yeah, well, just let us know if there was something we've missed there. There's another question. Is there somewhere we can refer clients for a wraparound service outside of Southeast Queensland?
It's difficult to say. Our partnerships are generally just the Southeast Queensland area. There are services, and I mean, we are able to give advice to the clients, and that may include making some referrals to different services in the area. It may not necessarily meet our criteria though for that wraparound to be able to come in as an ELS client. But the worst case is you make the referral, we book them in for an advice session, and then we can do whatever we can to keep progressing the matter from there.
Yeah. So I guess if you're ever unsure, just refer your client in and we'll hopefully be able to assist in some way.
Yeah, because someone said, case example, I had a client, sorry, it's just scrolled up, had a client from Western Queensland, so wanting to know where to link them in. Okay, sorry, I'm just reading through this long question that's come through. For the voluntary option Courtney spoke about, where the child remains in the home and are supported in negotiations, etc., with child safety and services, would a mother be able to access this service if there is a DO CPO application on foot? Hang on, where have we gone? The DO application on foot, mostly around the father's contact, but also some around the mother's engaging with the FIS and MH support and drug screening. Hopefully that means something to you.
Hi, Carmen. I assume that there's an application for the directive order and PSO still in court, so that would mean that the client has to fill in a legal aid application and we or a preferred supplier would be able to assist that way. And sorry, I may not have made it clear earlier that ELS is no proceedings. The child may be at home, but there's still proceedings on foot for the PSO directive order. So that's, yeah, that comes down the legal aid application stream as such.
Okay, another question.
Okay.
With the early access program, it mentioned on the slides that it can be accessed not during an active legal proceeding, but during an investigation and assessment period. How does this work if the department has already applied for a court assessment order? Would that dismiss the client from using this service? Generally, the investigation and assessment team are involved in the TAO and CAO orders.
So as soon as there's a grant of aid available, the ELS service isn't able to operate. So it could be that a court assessment order application has been filed, that is determined, but no, and then ELS could get involved again then in order to be able to assist to prevent that ongoing child protection order application at a later stage. So it's as long as there's a grant of aid, so that would mean like the court assessment order or a child protection order application being on foot, that's when the ELS eligibility stops. Hopefully that helps.
And in short, Scott, if you are made aware that there's going to be a TAO filed, it would be good to get the wraparound service to refer into our clinic early so that we can assist to try and avoid that intervention or assist in any way that we possibly can. So if in doubt, refer the client in, and then we can see what we can do to assist and which stream they fall into. I know it's really confusing, especially in those early spaces between TAO, TCO, KO, what they're eligible for, etc.
Okay, so that's all the questions we have at the moment. We still have time for more, but while we're waiting for some more to come through, I'm just going to run through a little bit of information about the publications on our website and all the great legal information on there. So just bear with me, there's some animation on these slides, they keep clicking through. So if you haven't already, go to the Legal Aid website. There's heaps of great free legal information resources on there. There's firstly heaps of pages of information about common legal problems across family law, civil law, criminal law. We also have a huge range of legal information guides, like step-by-step guides to talk you through a legal process. We've got fact sheets, we've got brochures, we do have some translated resources as well. We also have an easy English booklet if any of you have clients with like any form of disability that would benefit from like a pictorial display of our services. That's available on there too. So please, if you haven't already, go and have a look. You can link to it, you can get to it from the main Legal Aid website homepage. The other thing I wanted to mention was we run these webinars every month. We do upload the recordings. They're all free of charge. You can access them through our YouTube channel. And next month, our topic is going to be navigating legal aid's application process and applying for a grant of aid. So that one should be pretty popular. We promote our webinars through our mailing list and on our social media. And so please look out for the next one. We'll hope you can join us for then. Now I'll just get back to the questions slide in case we get any more questions coming through. I haven't seen any yet. While we're waiting to see if any more questions come through, I will just throw to you both and say, do you have any like take-home tips for people? Like if they've got a client, is your key message like just refer to us and we'll work out the appropriate service for them to
and whether or not it fits in with the outreach service, the ELS, or straight to our advice clinic to get a grant of aid. Best thing is just to get the information through, and then we can put it in the right pathway. Sometimes we do find people are already linked in with some of the wraparound services when they're booking for our legal advice sessions, so that can sometimes assist to get them through to that ELS stage as well.
Okay. Any other key points you want to share? Because we don't have any further questions come through.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, we are giving you an early March day. We'll finish nice and early. Thank you everyone for joining us. We really appreciate your time. We hope you got something out of this presentation. A caption version will be uploaded hopefully by early next week to our YouTube channel, and we'll send you a link to that next week. Thank you, Courtney and Megan, for being available to present this. And yeah, thank you again. Hopefully we'll see you at the next one. Thanks very much. Bye.